My life is in the cloud. I carry very little with me, but this is really me, Adam at Curry.com, Curry.com, and I'm going to tell you about how I make a living off of something I call value for value. And to explain that, I really have to go back just a little bit and tell you a bit about my history. 30 years of commercial broadcast history, really fancy way of saying I've been a disc jockey all my life, really what I have done. And it started, actually I was born in the United States, born in Arlington Hospital, Washington, D.C. My entire family, my uncles, my grandfather, everyone's either military or intelligence. So we moved to Uganda for 3 years, got out, got kind of weird there, and wound up moving to the Netherlands when I was about 7 years old. So I built my first transmitter when I was 15 years old, and my mom, bless her, she drove me around the block to see how far my signal would reach, and I had a record player, and I just put a record on. And some kids in the neighborhood, they said, "Hey man, we heard the signal, is that you?" I said, "Yeah." So you should do more of that. So I got another record player, built my own mixer, got a microphone, and I started doing my own little show on a very low-powered station just for the neighborhood kids. And it was kind of funny, my parents knowing what they did for me to be on a clandestine pirate radio station doing this stuff. I didn't know any of this at the time. And then my big break. There was a hospital about 5 miles up the road. I was 15 years old. And they had a closed-circuit radio station. And you had to be 16 to be on the air there, and they had an ad. They were looking for engineers and presenters. My parents said, "Okay, you can lie on your application. Go ahead." And I got in. It was really cool. I got a picture here. You can really tell this is when I was about 15, in 1981. Look at the phone. Remember those? And the ashtray. We used to smoke in the studios back then. And there I am, little disc jockey boy. And from there, I met up with other people, did big pirate radio stations in Amsterdam, and I went off to college to study communications. I desperately wanted to be on any college radio station, so I was going to go to America, to university, desperately wanted to be on the air. The only university or college I could find that would allow freshmen on their radio station was Salem College in West Virginia, which was quite intense. And quite a culture shock, me coming from Amsterdam. So I land in West Virginia. Within 2 months, I'm running the radio station. And I'm like, wow, what is going on here? Everyone just wants to drink and smoke weed and drive. I'm like, I'm from Amsterdam, man. I don't need to do all this crap. Did that when I was 13. So I called my mom. I said, I'm coming home. And this was not done, besides being military and everything, everyone extremely educated, Ivy League. My grandfather put himself through Harvard by tutoring at Harvard. They really put me through the ringer. Finally said, look, you can come home, but within 1 month, you're either back in school here in the Netherlands, or you got a job and you're paying rent, or you're out. And I got really lucky, and I started sending out some letters, and literally 3 weeks later, I was hosting a music program on the national television that it still started at 7 o'clock, but one night a week there was an hour, and I was all of a sudden the host because I could speak English fluently, certainly for Dutch standards, and I was interviewing like Tina Turner, Grace Jones, the Rolling Stones. It was mind blowing, and I went from just dork, actually had that hair when I was 19 when I was on the air, to superstar overnight. Crazy. So I'm doing this for a couple of years, and I get a call, and it's a guy from MTV in New York. He says, "Hey, you want to come and work for MTV?" And I knew they were thinking about starting up MTV Europe. I'm like, wait a minute, you mean Europe? He says, no, come to New York. I said, let me think. Yeah, I'll be there. No brainer. So off to New York, and it was phenomenal. I worked there for 7.5 years. Did all kinds of amazing things. A lot of commercial stuff, though. If you have ever had Skittles, if you like Skittles and you're old enough to remember me on MTV, you're eating the Skittles because of me. We sold you a shitload of Skittles. My favorite, the Spring Break. Everyone remember Spring Break on MTV? Anyone here remember that? The days, that was cool, right? So you think that we actually gave a shit about going to spring break? We wanted to get Budweiser on the network. That's why we did it. We said, where's Budweiser? They're at spring break. Okay, we put together this whole pilot program which showed how we were going to feature Budweiser all throughout the spring break. And that became spring break. So it was always driven by advertising. There were always deals being put together. In order to get Michael Jackson to perform on the Video Music Awards, we had to give him an award, which was a Vanguard Award for him. And then we had a whole weekend where it was, the Michael Jackson King of Pop weekend. There's always something. But, I was on MTV. What did I care? But it was kind of weird. In fact, some of you may be old enough to remember this. Hold on a second.
The Video Vanguard Artist of the Decade Award. Now, every year at the MTV Video Music Awards, we honor those artists whose work has left a lasting mark on the world of video. And we're here today to hand out the big one, the MTV Video Vanguard Artist of the Decade Award. And to call a recipient worthy is an understatement of epic proportion. Believe me, this guy really deserves it. Every single time we think we see him at his best, he just goes out and tops himself all over again. I'm talking, of course, about the one and only Michael Jackson.
All right, let's talk about this for a second. First of all, what the fuck is up with the hair? What's up with that? This was actually Michael Jackson's studios in Los Angeles, which is kind of funny. But here's the lie in the picture, which I thought was kind of cool. If you look at where my belt is and look where Michael's belt is, and he's standing a little bit behind me, what happened was we started off doing this take, and Michael's like, oh, stop. And he called Bob over. Bob was kind of his guy at the time. Whispers in his ear. Bob goes off, comes back with an apple crate, because Michael wanted to be as tall as I was. So he's actually standing on a crate in this shot. And this is kind of to show you how dishonest really medium is. I was happy to hear Wendell talk about mainstream media, because I think there is quite a difference these days. I've done satellite interviews with Janet Jackson when she really wasn't there. Just sent out some electronic press kit, and we just cut in my questions with her answers. Done all kinds of crazy things. But of course, I'm not a designer. At least I thought I wasn't a designer, which I thought it was weird that I was even asked to come and speak here. But then I looked up the definition, and I'm like, creator, planner, deviser, inventor, originator, maker. Maybe I am. I left MTV in 1993 and founded a company which evolved into a company called Think New Ideas. And we didn't really know what we were doing, but we kind of became one of the first internet advertising agencies. And in order to make money, we were building websites for corporations. So PlanetReebok.com, Continental Airlines, we actually helped with the first online ticket sales. Tampax.com, the website you'll visit more than once a month. I mean, we did all, and that was our branding. And it was actually quite good. You should check it out. It's still, there's a life decision that women make, and there's a reason that website exists. But we did design things. We built Budweiser.com, and that was weird because of my history with Budweiser. So I guess I am kind of a designer. More importantly, turns out I'm kind of an inventor. What happened was, 1999, kind of saw the writing on the wall. Probably you'd be able to do what we were charging companies $100,000 a month for just by creating a PowerPoint and saying export to HTML. We sold the company. When people were saying, you're nuts, you could be $1 billion company, don't do this. I said, well, we can get $450 million for this. We were actually a public company at the time. So we'd all make some money, and now we're going to do this. Oh, you're crazy, you shouldn't do it. Sold the company. 2 months later, .com bubble explodes. So we're like, ooh, that was kind of cool. I go back to Europe. I'm thinking I'm going to retire. And I do exactly what you shouldn't do. I got these millions of dollars, I'm like investing in companies. Failure, big failure. I love the failure speech today. It was great. And then the iPod comes out. I'm like, wow, this thing is pretty cool. Maybe this is it. Maybe we can not just have this for music, but maybe this is where I can broadcast my radio shows. And we come up, I with another fellow, Dave Weiner, we come up with this way to use an extra element, an RSS, kind of technical, to create podcasting. And meeting Michael Jackson was very, very cool. And I met him several times, and he's actually a lovely, lovely guy, and I really miss him. But when I got the call, Steve Jobs wants to meet you, oh, hold on a second. He said, please come to San Diego. I met him. He said, Adam, we're following podcasting, and we'd like to put podcasting in iTunes. Yeah, and we didn't patent it. I said, no patents, no trademarks, Steve? No patents, no trademarks. Because we want this to be open. I want people to be able to broadcast online. This is the whole point, is to have it completely open. He said, no, good to his word, by the way. But I just wanted to show you how we introduced podcasting at the All Things D conference, because it's kind of a fun video to watch, and then we'll talk about it.
Just if you were to eventually get into selling paid audio stuff, or
you could try to sell podcasts, but the whole phenomenon is so great it's free. Okay. And I think what we're going to see is an advertising-supported model emerge, just like free radio. Here's another. Adam Curry is one of the guys that invented podcasting, and he has a podcast called The Daily Source. Let me go ahead and subscribe to that, and we can go listen to his latest one. Just click on it.
Your daily source code, show number 180.
Something remarkable is happening here. Radio is springing free of the regulated gatekeepers who've managed what you can hear since radio was invented. It's jumping into the hands of anyone at all with something or nothing to say.
With $16 million worth of airplane strapped to my ass, and the next generation radio content in my ears.
We don't need no stinking transmitter.
I like to think I'm flying into the future. Podcasting is Adam Curry.
That's right, it's show number 180, and it's Friday, everybody. Thank God. I've actually had to restart the show 3 times. My Mac has been acting up like a motherfucker. I don't know what's going on. I think it's something to do with the file system.
Okay.
I had to get there, but it was worth it. I felt so awesome when I saw that happen, obviously. So now the thing that Steve said there, another guy I miss, he said, I think this is going to be an advertising model. And in my head, I thought, we probably can't, but I really didn't want to be what it was, where I came from. I thought maybe we can change advertising. Maybe it can be embedded, and we can just. And what happened is, I actually started another company, and I was living in London at the time, and we got a lot of venture capital interest in Silicon Valley. So I started a company out in San Francisco with my former partner at Think New Ideas, and we got a lot of money was invested. And we started to do, this is even before YouTube, so we started to do audio podcasts, really trying to come up with this new model. And quite honestly, it kind of failed. Not in that the company isn't around today, still makes money and is profitable, but it was the old system, exactly what I didn't want. It was completely back to, pre-rolls, and it really didn't matter. It didn't matter what the content was as long as someone saw or heard the ad. And it just really wasn't working for me. So I'm commuting back and forth between London and San Francisco. I actually meet a guy out there named John C. Dvorak, a little bit older than I am. He's like in his 60s. And we actually meet on some show, and he's like, "What's your deal, Curry? You still have money? Are you rich? People don't like you." I'm like, "What?" I said, "I heard you're a dick too." He actually is a very well-known writer in Silicon Valley. If you've grown up with PC Magazine or Macworld, he's always on the back page, a real curmudgeon. And we got along famously. From that, and so I'd fly back to London, and we'd talk on Skype, once or twice a week, and I'd be comparing what I was reading in the papers in the UK, and he'd tell me what was going on there. And I had time on my hands, particularly if I was commuting every 3 weeks over to San Francisco. And this is around 2007, 2008. And, of course, I'm still kind of Mr. Commercial guy, and I keep reading about the European Constitution. Now we have a couple of Europeans in the audience today, which got voted down by France and the Netherlands. And I grew up in the Netherlands, so I wonder what this Constitution was. And so they got rid of it, and they reintroduced it as the Lisbon Treaty. Anyone know what the Lisbon Treaty is? Okay, very few. It's basically the Constitution of the United States of Europe. And Ireland had to vote on it, and they voted no, and then it was like, redo, we vote again. I was like, something's weird. So, of course, the internet, fast enough now at this point, and I got time, and I start reading the Lisbon Treaty, which was being sold to all these countries in Europe as, this is great, we're all going to have the same money, the euro. But when I read it, I'm like, this is crazy. They're going to create a parliament with 700 members who can't actually introduce laws. They can only debate, but they're going to have this commission which is not elected, and they're the ones that are going to be able to create the laws. And I was like, this sounds like a complete takeover. And I discussed this with John, and we really get into this whole conversation. And we start talking about how the media spins things to keep the slaves nice and happy and silent and just shut up and move along, nothing to see here. And we're doing this once a week, when I'm in London. I say, we should record this. Let's put this out as a podcast. He's like, great idea. So we do that. And along with that, when I'm out in San Francisco, I start watching C-SPAN, because I think if this is going on with our government in Europe, it must be happening with the government in the United States. And lo and behold, if you've actually sat down and watched C-SPAN, that's some of the funniest shit in the world. You're just like, oh my God. They're saying this, but the news, the 6 o'clock news says something completely different. So we started to deconstruct media. And what is our media really doing? I mean, you think MSNBC is really good, CNN, or Fox? They're all shit. In fact, I think the Democrats actually run Fox, I have to say. You'd be crazy. But this is the left-right paradigm where we just want to keep people very occupied. You live in a red state, a blue state, you're Democrat, you're Republican, you're left, right. It's divide and conquer, and it's working very well. And public media, PBS, has commercials. How can you be an honest medium if you have commercials, if you're sponsored by Boeing or Archer Daniels Midland or Monsanto? Hello? Vivian Schiller, just before she left NPR, and this is just a piece of audio, was at a luncheon, and she was asked a very important question about their funding. And her answer was extremely telling.
Okay, moving on to money. How are NPR's corporate underwriting revenues holding up in the recession? And what about foundation grants?
Two different stories. Underwriting is down. It's down for everybody. I mean, this is the area that is most down for us. Is in sponsorship, underwriting, advertising. Call it whatever you want.
What?
Okay.
Advertising? Call it whatever you want? No, I thought you're not advertising. I thought it was corporate underwriting. She literally says, call it whatever you want, it's advertising. Therefore, inherently, you cannot trust this. To move quickly through what happened with this No Agenda podcast. It took off like a rocket. One of our producers, as we call them, and I'll explain what that means in a minute, listened to me always harping 3 years ago about drones. I'm like, this is bad. These drones, you're going to see these things are going to be flying above our cities, they're going to be everywhere, and of course now we know that that is true. And so he went out on the streets of New York City. You may have heard about this, and these are real signs that he hung up, but check this one out, local statutes enforced by drone. He made these signs and started hanging them up, and he was just in the news again with these. Now, these are really good, what he did in New York. These were taken down by New York City police just earlier in the week. He actually put those into the bus stop signs. Bloomberg's there watching you with the cameras and the drone. There's a little bomb being dropped on you from the drone. So we're clearly influential in doing something that is catching on with people. Because it became a lot of work, we started to solicit donations. It's like now they want us to do 2 shows a week. We can't just be doing this for free because we might have to give up our day job. And we actually set up a donation page, donate, and if we start getting enough money, then we'll do this full time. And lo and behold, it started to happen. And it was about 3 years ago, I said to my lovely wife, Mickey, I said, you know what? I think I can quit my day job. That'll mean that I don't get that big salary anymore, that nice check, but I think that we can probably start living off of what the donations are, which we call our value for value model. So we started asking people, what do you spend on entertainment? What's a night out at the movies? With some popcorn, 2 people, $40? Said, instead of going to the movies, send that to us. And they did. And then we said, we're just like Hollywood, except, unlike the douchebags there, we're actually going to, support you when you're an executive producer. And what does the executive producer do? They pay for the show. And, you might get to hang out with the actresses. In our case, we don't get that. But we'll give you a real credit. We'll give you an executive producer credit if you give us over $300 for 1 episode. Over $200, then that will be an associate executive producer. And this is how we started building it up. And we give those credits in the show. We have a whole donation segment. And if your total donations are $1,000 or more, you become a knight, because why should that woman in England be the only one who can do that? A knight of the No Agenda Roundtable. And we actually will give you a ring, which is a signet ring. And you get the little sealing wax to go with it. And really, this is now, we're about to celebrate our 5th year, and it's sometimes scary because if you don't do a good job, then donations are down. If donations are good, you know you're on the right track. We work very, very hard. It's 2 shows a week. Each show is about 2.5 hours, but we're selling nothing. We can say anything we want. We can offend anybody. Is completely impossible in mainstream media, and it is something that we identified as a very important trend, that people who want products and services are starting to produce these themselves. And this is what I want to leave you designers with, if you're interested. There are initiatives on the internet now that take this exact same model where people are funding what they want. So this is Indiegogo. I just picked one at random. If you look at literally the title here, Let's Make a Record Together. $11,000 for a goal of $10,000. So this money will not, you know how these things work, this money will now go to the project. This album will be made. The one that blew me away, a reinvention of the light bulb. I saw this just the other day. This guy says, I want to make an LED light bulb that can change colors. I want to be able to be done through a smartphone. We can reinvent the light bulb, and I need $100,000 to do it. $1 million already. This is going to happen. And this is what the people want. People want these products. It's no longer just the ivory tower that says, oh, we're going to design something and people will like it. It's no longer the broadcast organization that says, we're going to make this and people will like it and we'll fund it through advertising. I just got this because now we're getting very close to what a smartphone will be. And I predict that your next iPhone will not come from Apple, because we all know where the iPhone comes from. China. From Foxconn. You can take your millions of dollars and call up Foxconn and say, here's the design, we want it made this way, and it will happen. And maybe, just maybe, when we see the power that we have to create the phone that we want, maybe we'll figure out that we can also use that power to vote the leadership that we want. I'm looking forward to that day. Thank you very much.